Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name is Sean Wasserkrug, and with me, as always, is Brian Michaels. And we have a very fun episode. I think it's a very divisive episode this week. I said last week.
Sometimes.
What's that?
But that can be fun sometimes.
It can be. I said last week, before the show ended, when we were talking about this week's episode, I was like, this is going to not be a fun week for Brian. Because I know that there are movies here that Brian actively does not like. And I was hoping that I would change his mind on some, but then I saw his Letterboxd scores, and it does not look like it did. But I enjoy a good chunk of these movies. Before we get into it too deep, Brian, what are your thoughts on this today's slate?
There were more stinkers than good ones this week. I'll just say that, and I'll get into details later.
Strongly disagree. Anyway, we're going to be starting off with our revisited film this week. This is a movie that I watched a lot as a young kid. It introduced me at that age. It introduced me to a lot of actors that I enjoy today. Not necessarily for what they're doing today, but for what they've done in the past. But this was my introduction to a lot of them back then. And we are now talking about the Disney live-action film, The Three Musketeers. The Three Musketeers came out November 12th, 1993, had a budget of $30 million, had a weekend opening of $10.62 million. It was number one its opening weekend. It had a finished box office of $53.89 million. Yeah, this was one of those movies that I was like, I'm hoping I could change Brian's mindset on this, and it doesn't look like I did based off his Letterboxd score. But before I jump over to Brian, like I said, this movie I watched a lot when I was a kid. My dad, he's a huge Three Musketeers fan. So he always had some kind of Three Musketeers thing on. If it wasn't that, it was James Bond or baseball movies. So this is something I kind of grew up with. Obviously, cast-wise, we all know how much I love Kiefer Sutherland. He's the hacky sack king, of movies. Then, of course, you got Charlie Sheen, Oliver Platt, who we talked about a couple weeks back on 3 to Tango. You got Chris O'Donnell, who I think we also talked about recently as well. Didn't we just talk about him? It was in a stinker. Or no. He was in a, was it Ronin? Yeah, very, very small part.
He's in Ronin.
No, it wasn't Ronin. It was Max Payne.
Oh, that's right. He does pop from Max Payne. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, very small part of Max Payne that we didn't even bring up on the show. And then, of course, Tim Curry. The man that made me terrified of clowns. And this was the first film. Actually, no, that would have been this came out right before Home Alone 2, right?
Home Alone 2 was the year before this.
It was the year before. Okay, so I saw him on Home Alone 2. But this was the first movie I saw him in that I remember before Home Alone 2. Obviously, I saw him as Pennywise in It in 1990 when I was 5, which made me terrified of clowns to this day. But I really, really enjoy this cast. And I'm shocked that Brian does not like this movie because he loves Mask of Zorro. And I felt like this was a Disney version of that. So it boggles my mind that you don't like this movie. Why? What are your thoughts on The Three Musketeers?
Well, I should like this movie. And I think, okay,
this is right in your wheelhouse.
For starters, I think the fact that it's Disney is part of what hurts it for me. Just part of it.
There's a lot of killing in it, though, for a Disney film.
So basically, this movie is Young Swords. They basically made Young Guns 1 and 2, and then said, let's do the same thing, but in a different setting. So they take, these hot young actors and put them in a group and just give them swords instead of guns, and then go. Let's just make another hit movie. Because I love both the Young Guns movies, and I love Kiefer Sutherland, Charlie Sheen in the day before he went batshit, liked him. I'm surprised they didn't cast Emilio Estevez and the other ones in this. They probably tried to, and they weren't available. But so they tried to. So I like Young Guns. I have no problem with like the swords and the musketeer kind of genre to it. It just, I don't know if the fact that it's because it's Disney, but it seems like it went way too silly. I mean, maybe if I had seen this first when I was still a kid, I would have a lot more love for it because it almost seems like it's weird because it almost seems kind of like at times it's geared more towards kids. But there's other times where it's getting pretty damn violent. And, Oliver Platt is teaching Chris O'Donnell the art of wenching. Because I'm like, And this has got the Disney. It's not even Touchstone or Hollywood. It's got the Disney label on it. So I'm like, this has got a weird tone for this
Y'all
movie
got
as far
Tim
as
Curry hitting on the young queen.
yeah, as far as what audience they're going for in this. But the movie, and I love Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, and this movie clearly, this came out 2 years after that. This movie clearly wanted to be like another Robin Hood Prince of Thieves. You had the same kind of genre to it and the same kind of tone. You have Tim Curry trying his best to be Alan Rickman, Sheriff of Nottingham. You got another Bryan Adams power love ballad over the credits because they got to copy it in that way. And it's so in so many ways it had these other movies that it was trying to emulate, but it just didn't work for me. I think the dialogue was really cringy. I think that it was a little bit too goofy. Oliver Platt's character got a little bit too slapsticky at times and weird with his dialogue and being silly. And I know they want somebody to be the comic relief, but it's just like, eh.
Well, Porthos is always the comic relief in every version of Three Musketeers. He's always the kind of the drunk, brute or comedic, tone.
I get that. I thought he went a little too broad with it. And it's just, like I said, is this a movie that I couldn't figure out its tone or even its target demographic it was going for? And all the pieces are there for a good movie, but for me, it just didn't come together.
That's just so weird because that was the other thing too that I was thinking about. I was like, oh, this is also very Robin Hood Prince of Thieves. It's like, again, another movie. Brian loves those kinds of movies, so that's why it's like, why does this one not work for you?
The one thing I forgot to mention, which is the thing that made me dislike the movie the most, Chris O'Donnell is maybe one of the worst actors I've ever seen. I mean, especially in this movie, he sounds like a high school kid in a play reciting his lines. It's so bad. He has no chemistry with anyone. Not just like love chemistry, but he has no chemistry with the other actors, and it really sounds like he's just reading his line in this horrible monotonous way, and that really hurts the movie.
Was this one of his first? This got to be one of his first roles, I believe.
Yeah, it's pretty early on. Yeah.
I can't defend Chris O'Donnell because literally I'm rewatching this because it's been a while since I've watched this movie, and he's the one that I keep forgetting's in it, and he's D'Artagnan. He's the main character. But it's like, oh yeah, it was like Charlie Sheen, Kiefer Sutherland, Tim Curry, Oliver Platt, and I'm not gonna lie, the first 20 minutes, well, what's supposed to say, the first 10 minutes he's in Paris. I'm not gonna say the very, very beginning where he's fighting. Oh God, what's his name? Is it Gerard? The flamboyant
character's name, but yeah,
the flamboyant character that they're trying to play off as feminine, but which I thought was funny. I thought that guy did a solid job.
Playing his sister, he was, yeah.
Yeah. But when he first gets to Paris and he interacts with each individual Three Musketeer, it feels very video game cutscene-y, where it's like you bumped into them, they said something to you, you have a voice box choice of choosing one of 4 options.
Exactly. That's
and then you respond, and then it's like, do you want to duel with them or do you want to fix it? No, we're gonna duel. And then next cutscene, it's very boom, 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 boom. And I was like, oh wow, I don't remember it being very video game cutscene right here. But once you bring, I think the crux and what makes this movie work for me is not Chris O'Donnell, is Kiefer, Charlie, and Platt together. I think all 3 of them, when they're on screen together, I think they work incredibly well. I think their chemistry with each other all work. I think they really got together well in making sure that the 3 Musketeers felt very tight-knit and close. And then you also got Tim Curry, who I think is doing a fun job with being the Cardinal. His lines, I'm not gonna say.
I love Tim Curry. I love all kinds of stuff.
Tim Curry's got some great villain lines. You have to answer to God. You first. It's just like there's so many. It's like, but it's the mustache twirling villain, and Tim Curry always does a fantastic job playing those kinds of roles. And I love Tim Curry in this film. And I actually also really liked oh God, what's his name? The one
Michael Wincott?
Rushford?
Is that Michael Wincott, like his second command? Who also in Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, Esther Guy Gisborne as the second command. Just saying, they have envy here.
But I liked him because he's not a guy I normally see a whole lot. And his gravitas voice and like all this kind of I really enjoyed his character. The Rebecca De Mornay side story, I don't think really did a whole lot for me there. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like
almost like this, like, well, we need another female role. Let's stick something in here. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's the part where I kind of can agree with you on, where it's like, who's this movie aiming towards? Because this storyline has nothing for the kids; it's strictly for the adults. But yeah, there's a lot of killing. Obviously, people getting drunk in the film, and obviously hooking up. I mean, literally, the first time we see Charlie Sheen, he's trying to talk about the Bible, and this girl's trying to get on top of him. It's very Charlie Sheen.
The first time we see Chris O'Donnell, he's basically saying, "Hey, I nailed your sister."
Well, yeah, even as a kid, like obviously, like as a kid, I wasn't getting those tones because I was too young at the time to understand that. But as an adult, it made me appreciate it more because it's like, oh, it's still, for me, it's not overly kiddie, like how Shrek has adult jokes that kids aren't going to understand. But then as soon as they become teenagers or adults, they're like, oh, I never got that joke before until just now. But I think it looks good. I think the action set pieces with.
I'll agree on you with both these things. It looks good, and I think the action, for the most, there's a couple of them that are a little stiffly choreographed, but for the most part, the action is very well done in this movie. Yes,
I will say, and this is one thing that even as a young kid, I was never a fan of this performance. I was never a fan of the character. I think it was poorly acted. As a child, I called how poorly acted this was, and it was not Chris O'Donnell. Growing up, now I realize how bad Chris O'Donnell is in the role. It's the King. Oh God, the King is horrible, and I'm sorry, that nose. My God, that nose. But as I was watching this, I was like, why do I feel like this guy's like trying to be Orlando Bloom?
I honestly didn't feel like the King had a large enough part to even acknowledge that. I was just like, he was like this such a minimal character.
I remember as a kid hating that character because it's like, first off, like even as a kid, I was like, wait, so he doesn't want to hang out with the Queen? The Queen's beautiful. He doesn't want to be around her, and it's like, oh, it's because he's nervous and all that crap. But it's like, I don't understand. Is he gay? Like, if he's gay, that's fine. Let it.
The funny thing is, when I'm watching this movie, the person he reminded me of most was the King or Prince or whatever it was in Braveheart. I don't know how long ago you saw Braveheart last.
I've never seen Braveheart all the way through.
Oh, so well, there's a King who's basically the same character, and there's like this woman who's supposed to be like, his wife or whatever, but he's basically got this gay lover off to the side, so he's always acting very feminine and stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, I've never been a fan of the performance of the King. And the Queen, I mean, her performance in here is not that great, but I like her from the TV show Burn Notice. So I'm a fan of her. So when I saw her, I was like, oh my God, is that who I think?
Yes, I know her from back in the day. She was in there's this movie with Richard Grieco from 21 Jump Street called If Looks Could Kill, which is a funny spy comedy thing. Mm-hmm. And she'd been in some Disney movies like Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken and some other stuff. But anyway,
is it Gabrielle?
Love Money with Michael J. Fox, another good movie.
Yes, I remember that movie. Gabrielle Anwar is who we're talking about. But yeah, it's just, but I enjoy, and Oliver Platt, I'm sorry, his humor works for me. He's got so many great lines, and as I was watching the movie, I was remembering
with the rest of the movie.
It does fit with the movie because you have Kiefer playing the straight and narrow kind of like grumpy. He's playing Kiefer,
like Doc in Young Guns. Okay.
Yeah, he's playing. I've never seen Young Guns. We've had this discussion.
If you like this, you should see Young Guns because you would love those movies even more.
Then we've already had this discussion. I will see Young Guns at some point. Okay. But I've never seen Young Guns, so I have no basis off of that. Kiefer's playing Kiefer, which to me, he will always be Jack Bauer. But, he's playing Kiefer. We got Charlie Sheen, who's teetering between serious and comical, which is why he works so well with Platt. And yeah, Platt being Platt. I love Oliver Platt. And I think he's a criminally underrated actor or comedic actor. Yeah. And I think he's got some great lines in the movie. Come, D'Artagnan, we're going to save the king. Like, I love that line. And then there's also like, hello, oh, ooh, ugly, when he sees the dungeon guy. He's like, where have you been? Dealing with something ugly. Like, he's just got great delivery on all of his comedic timings in that film. And I love Oliver Platt in them.
And I agree, but all those scenes and lines, they feel like something you'd find in another Disney movie, like Kid in King Arthur's Court kind of level of tone.
Oh, don't drop it down to Kid in King Arthur.
I just meant as far as that kind of tone, one is aimed more towards kids. This one, trying to teeter between serious and being, kid friendly, and so kind of like I said, there's things about it I like, and obviously, and you take this O'Donnell.
Does it warrant
at least a full star? I'll say that.
Does it warrant a 1.5 star rating from you? I mean, come on, you give Sneakers. No, I checked it right after I watched it last night, and it was a 1.5. I was like, that's harsh. That's a
I think,
harsh rating from you.
you know what? I think I bumped it. I think it was, I originally had put it at a 1.5 last time I watched it. And then when I watched it
Okay, so
this
you've
time,
changed it since then. 'Cause I saw that, I was like,
no, my
wow.
watch from 5 years ago, I had it at 1.5. I rewatched it on Saturday and made 2 stars.
Okay, it's still,
Anyway,
I would have been okay with 2.5 added.
and like I said, Chris O'Donnell being gone would raise it a full star at least.
But anyway, Three Musketeers, I like it. I enjoy it. I think if you like the movies that we have mentioned,
It's
I
not
think that
awful. It's fun.
yeah, which still I don't think that warrants a 2-star from you. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's on Disney Plus because obviously it's a Disney film. But yeah, I enjoy it. It was one of the very first action films that was like, it's kid friendly, but it's not at the same time, that I was actually able to watch. Granted, I said that I watched like Passenger 57. I watched a lot of R-rated films when I was a kid. My parents were totally cool with that. She's like, I'm not gonna go do.
And that explains
stuff.
Sean today.
Yeah, because I'm a normal human being who doesn't think that movies will decide or factor how my childhood defines.
I'm sure I've shown my kids things they shouldn't be watching.
Yeah, exactly. Define, like, I remember when I was little, sneaking behind the couch from another room watching Poltergeist or some other movie that had sex in it because my brother had it on TV when he wasn't supposed to be watching it, and I'm laying behind the sofa going, "What's he watching?" Because I knew if I came in the room, he'd get pissed. So that's how my childhood was. But anyway, we're going to be moving on now to Brian's pick. This was a movie that I had not seen before. And Brian was talking very positively about it, obviously, because it's his pick. And we are talking about the, I would say, theft film.
It's a heist.
It's a heist film.
Drama,
for some reason, heist is escaping my brain, so I said theft. The heist comedy action-esque film, 2004's After the Sunset. After the Sunset came out November 12th, 2004, had a budget of $60 million, had a weekend opening of $11.5 million. It was number 3 its opening weekend. It had a finished box office of $62.65 million, $28.33 million domestic, and $34.32 million international. This was weird for me because it's like I don't remember seeing this movie, but there were parts that I was like, this feels familiar to me. And before I let you get into it, because it's your movie, watching this film, some things rang like, I think I've been here before with you. This basically is to me, a more fun, sexier version of Thomas Crown Affair, but with jewels instead of art. And I'll say that and then lead it into you. Go ahead with After the Sunset.
Yeah, this is a weird one because I look on Letterboxd, and of all my friends on Letterboxd, like nobody has seen this movie, and it's not an obscure film. I mean, it came out in 2004. It's directed by Brett Ratner, and this is after he'd done
cast-wise.
And this is after he'd done at least 2 of the Rush Hours and Red Dragon and stuff. Salma Hayek, a big heart star already at that point. Woody Harrelson obviously has had a long career. Pierce Brosnan, this is after he was done with James Bond and after Thomas Crown Affair and stuff. So this is not an obscure movie. It got a wide release with a full, a well-known cast, but nobody has seen this movie, and I don't know why. I think it's just, I don't think it's a perfect movie by any means, but it's just one of those ones that's underseen, underrated.
I think if this was released in the summer and not November, it probably would have gotten more eyes on it.
That's probably it. And I also like to point out, this is Brett Ratner before he got, basically blacklisted. This is not the Me Too movie era.
This is also before X-Men Last Stand too, I think.
Yeah. And you can also see how Brett Ratner might have had a little bit of, womanizer in him, since every shot of this movie is just like, hey, look how sexy Salma Hayek looks. Which
that's okay most with. Movies with Salma Hayek back
really
then.
Is, but especially this one. It was pretty obvious. So basically this movie is Pierce Brosnan is this Pierce Brosnan and his girlfriend, Salma Hayek, are basically thieves, and they made their career stealing these things, most specifically these Napoleon diamonds, of which there are 3 of them. And they've been evading this is FBI?
Yeah, he's FBI.
FBI agent of Woody Harrelson, who's been trying to catch him, but he's been made to look like a fool by them on multiple occasions because he can't catch them, and everybody makes fun of him. And anyway, so Pierce Brosnan and Salma Hayek retire. They move to this island in the Caribbean somewhere. and they're just going to live their lives. And, they are getting kind of bored with, normal life, just not pulling off crimes. And then FBI agent shows up. He finds out the third Napoleon Diamond is going to be at a ship and port at this on this island. And so he thinks they're there to steal it. It goes from there. The first and foremost thing, the reason I love this movie is the cast. Pierce Brosnan, I always love him. He's one of those actors who, not all of his movies are hits, but I always like him and everything he does. Salma Hayek, I think, is both a beautiful woman and a great actress. Naomi Harris, who I think doesn't get enough credit. She is I think I really like her as an actress. I also think she's a beautiful woman. And here she's clearly, this I think is the role that got her the role of Calypso in Pirates of the Caribbean, because she's even like doing that same kind of accent.
She's totally doing the accent.
Yeah, and this is like 2 years before that. So I have to think that somebody watched this and like, hey, she'll be perfect. Let's cast her.
Here's the funny thing. She pops up in the film, and I'm listening to her, and I go, "Is that Calypso?" It's like I didn't even like connect.
Oh, yeah, Calypso looks like old and like
yeah, and I heard the voice. I'm like, that sounds like Pirates of the Caribbean, and then I was like, "Yep, that's exactly where." Yeah, sure. You're right.
But I totally agree with your assessment though of the Thomas Crown Affair. This feels to me like a spiritual sequel to Thomas Crown Affair. Like Thomas, decided to retire and moved off to this island, somewhere, and then now he's kind of feeling that pull to get back into the game to steal this diamond. At the same time, he's trying to fight it.
Rene Russo to Salma Hayek,
which
Rene Russo's a very, very beautiful.
6 to 1, half dozen of the other. I'll take him, but
Salma Hayek is
Salma Hayek. And Brett Ratner takes every opportunity in every shot of this movie to just like show off the insane hotness of Salma Hayek, and it's just it almost feels dirty watching this, but I don't, because I agree. I would keep the camera on her as well.
I would as well.
But I mean, it's got a lot of the same kind of tone as Thomas Crown Affair, whereas then it's technically a heist drama to it, but it really is played with kind of a wink, and it's got kind of a fun level to it where you're kind of enjoying just dealing with the characters, and you kind of see how they're having fun with what they're doing. Especially you throw in Woody Harrelson, who does a great job here too as well. But yeah, I'll stop for a minute. This is your first time seeing it, you think?
Well, that's the funny thing is, like, when we got to the third act and the third act storyline that they were doing, I was like, I feel like I've seen this now. Because like that part was ringing a bell. So like maybe I caught like the end of this previously while like going through channels one day, but it's like the rest of the movie, no. But that third act when Pierce does the activity with them, I'm just like, this all sounds really, really familiar. And I think I already know what's going to happen here. And sure enough, it was exactly what I thought it was. But yeah, I mean, first things first, you started off, to me, a great way. You started off with Shaquille O'Neal and the Lakers playing, and you're watching basically a basketball game with Pierce Brosnan, and then you add Woody Harrelson, and all of a sudden, like, I'm watching, I'm expecting this to be kind of more of a serious film, like Thomas Crown, and then it just starts to go kind of zany with the comedy a little bit, and not zany like over the top, but it's like oh no, this is more of a comedic tone to it, and then you add Woody, which Woody's great at these kinds of roles, and I'm like, okay, all right. And then you have like the montage of Pierce and Selma having to eat lobster every night and stuff like that. Even I was like, oh,
God, getting bored in paradise, just living a normal life.
Well, yeah. Exactly. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'm feeling the flow of what this film is supposed to be. And then you add, the Don Cheadle storyline, which is like, okay, that's very out of sight. He's playing kind of like the same character from Out of Sight a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed this. And I think the reason why this movie works so well, outside of the incredible beauty of Salma Hayek in this film, is the comedic chemistry between Pierce and Woody.
Yes.
They are great together. I could just watch, and this is the best comedic timing I think I've seen since White Man Can't Jump, with Woody and Wesley. I think it's different, obviously, because with Wesley and Woody, they're just cussing back and forth and playing basketball. But with this, it's constantly a like cat and mouse. It's like Tom and Jerry, but Tom is cool with hanging out with Jerry, but he knows he's got the upper hand because he's like, I'm smarter than you. But it's just, but you know what?
What's weird is it's almost like they subbed in Woody Harrelson it's almost like they split the Rene Russo role from Thomas Crown Affair into Woody Harrelson and Salma Hayek.
Well, yeah, and then the other half you added in wow, blanking on his name. Oh my god, from Thomas Crown Affair.
Pierce Brosnan? What?
No, rescue me.
Dennis Leary.
Dennis Leary, thank you.
I didn't know who you were going for.
I was like, oh my god, I totally blanked on his name, and I love Dennis Leary. But it's like you took half of Rene Russo and half of Dennis Leary, because Dennis Leary was more comedical a little bit in Thomas Crown, and you mixed them together and you made him a male, and that's Woody Harrelson. And it works because I really enjoyed the time when Pierce Brosnan and Woody Harrelson are together. And like normally you'd be like, oh, I want more and more on Salma Hayek, but her showing up and I mean she's in it a lot. It's not like she's a small part by any means, but when her and Naomi Harris show up, they're fun. But the crux of this film works because of how much fun Woody and Pierce are together. From them, fishing on the boat with the shark to them having to stay the night together in a hotel room, and or even when he keeps trying to tail Pierce like through the parade. It's a fun ride. Is it predictable as hell? Sure, but you know what? It's like pizza. You know what pizza's gonna taste like. Is every pizza gonna taste better than the last one? No, but it's still pizza, and you're still gonna fucking eat it. And that's what it's like with this film. Do I know the plot? Sure. Do I know exactly what's gonna happen, how it's gonna go? Yeah. Does that make it bad? No, it does not. Am I gonna enjoy it? Yeah, because it's fucking pizza. And that is what it's like here with Pierce Brosnan and Woody Harrelson. It's fun. And even how it ends, I like the way it ended. I thought it was a funny way to end, because like had they decided to continue, they could have. Because I would like to see these characters again. We're never going to, obviously. But it was a fun way to leave it open-ended, and I enjoyed it immensely. I actually had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's totally predictable. But I mean, as I'm a sucker for heist movies. I love heist movies. And this one, if I had to pick a negative about this movie, it would just be that the main heist it's all building up to kind of gets glossed over pretty quickly. It's kind of like, oh, and now he has it. I'm like, okay.
I think it's more not more about the heist, but more of the dilemma of should he or should
right, that wasn't the focus of the movie. I'm just saying that as somebody, if I had to choose something I would have wanted more of, that I wish there was more of, it would have been more on the heist. But I understand that was not the.
But if you think about it this way, Thomas Crown Affair is the same way. It builds up to this one big heist, but it's not about the heist at all. It's about.
Although really the heists are kind of some of the most fun scenes of that movie, though.
True.
But in this one, I mean, like you said, it's predictable. It's totally fun. It's gorgeous to look at. Not just the people, but the setting. I love the setting of this movie.
Oh, I also really like. Oh God, he's the bartender. I really enjoyed the bartender in the film. I think his name was Luke.
I don't remember who played the bartender.
I seen him in things. He pops up here and there. Keep going. I'm gonna pop him up.
Go.
Troy Garrity.
Oh, okay.
He was in he's in Ballers, and he was in Barbershop. He was like the only white guy in Barbershop.
I never saw Barbershop.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, this is a movie that I just think is more people should see it, because nobody's seen this movie. When I talk about it, nobody knows what I'm talking about, or maybe they're like, oh, I remember the poster for that or something. But I don't know why people didn't see this movie, but they should, because it is just a ton of fun.
Well, it's funny because you see, this is easily one of those movies that you would see on TNT every weekend when it's not like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or an MCU movie. Kind of like Matthew McConaughey's like Fool's Gold. That you would find that on like FX or TNT like every week, and it's just you see it over and over and over again. This is that, but in my opinion, better. Because it's just a lot more fun to watch than something like a Fool's Gold or anything like that. But yeah, no, this I enjoyed it. I was kind of like, all right, let's get this over with. And then as I was watching, I was like, oh, so this is the movie? Okay, I'm actually gonna have fun watching this one.
So I thought you'd enjoy this one. I'm happy you did.
Good pick. Apparently I can't make good picks for you, but yeah.
The problem is the good movies that you've seen and like are ones that I've already seen. That's all.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We're not going there next, but we will get to that. But next we're going to go to our stinker pick. And this was one that I was more intrigued by Brian's watch of this than I was the film itself, because I had seen the movie already. But This film obviously more relevant now than it would have been 2 months ago, because the main character has now got his own TV show and it's back. And we are talking about not the last film, because they did do 2 direct to DVD films after this,
And
but definitely the last theatrical that's not a remake. We are talking about 2004's The Seed of Chucky, or Seed of Chucky. Seed of Chucky came out November 12th, 2004, had a budget of $12 million, had a weekend opening of $8.8 million, number 4 its opening weekend, had a finished box office of $24.82 million, $17.08 million domestic, and $7.74 million international. Yeah, Chucky, obviously in this past month, Chucky has definitely kind of been thrusted to the forefront because he's got his own show on USA, which outside of the teeny bopper acting of some of the younger cast, it's actually pretty solid show. I actually quite enjoy it because they brought Brad Dourif back to voice Chucky. Like I said, this is the last of the theatrical films, not counting the remake of Child's Play back in 2019 with Mark Hamill. Can't remember what year.
I want to say 19.
I think it's 19. But yeah, like obviously that was a remake and complete redo of the franchise. But there were 2 movies after this. You had a Cult of Chucky, Curse of Chucky. I think that's reversed. I think it was Curse then Cult. But this was definitely the last theatrical one with Brad Dourif, and to me, probably the worst one. This was the worst one by far. And I remember we were ready to watch this, and Brian hadn't seen this one. And Brian goes, "Do I need to know what happened in Bride of Chucky before I watch Seed?" I was like, "No." I was like, he's got a girlfriend doll, named Tiffany. They hooked up in the last movie, and she got pregnant, and that's all you need to know. But then we were like, what, 20 minutes into this, and we literally had to pause this and like go back and check out scenes from Bride of Chucky
it started because she wanted to confirm like how she had died versus how she looked here, which we got explained later on. But it started with that. And they're like, "Oh, while we're here, we got to check out this other scene."
No, you really are like, wait. So did they have sex? How did Chucky and Tiffany have sex? Is it like Team America? It's like, well,
do they have genitals on these anatomical dolls? Yeah.
And we realized that they totally changed the whole mythology of Chucky in the span of 2 films. Because it's definitely a weird movie. I'm gonna. Well, actually, no. I'll do kind of what Brian does. Because I've seen this before, I'll go and then I'll let Brian go because it's the first time watching it. Seed of Chucky. There's when I think back on Seed of Chucky before I had seen this, the one thing I think about is the horrific decision of Glenn or Glinda doll, voiced by what's his name from Billy Boyd from Lord of the Rings, or Pippin, as everyone probably know him. Like they probably know him more as Pippin than they do his real name. Oh my god, the character of Glenn/Glinda is horrid, and it really is what brings the movie down in my eyes, because this movie as Chucky is a very kind of meta film, because you have Jennifer Tilly playing herself, who obviously
that's what we totally wanted to be New Nightmare.
Yeah, I mean it basically is because Jennifer Tilly plays Tiffany, who was Chucky's girlfriend in the old films. Mm-hmm. Well, not in the old films, but she was in terms of character. And then, Chucky kills Tiffany and turns her into a doll, voiced by Jennifer Tilly. And now we got Jennifer Tilly playing Tiffany still, and obviously playing herself. And so very, very meta. Plus, they're making a Chucky movie, which is a whole other thing, because they never really acted like anyone knew who Chucky was.
And the guy in there, I'm not sure, supposed to be the director or the special effects guy or whatever. He's the actual special effects guy, the real life one who does the Chucky dolls and stuff. So
exactly, and so it goes very, very meta with it. And that story, I'm fine with. I actually like that thought process. They're trying to go meta with the whole Chucky, and they're kind of going out in the open of like everyone knows who Chucky is in this. Whereas in Bride and the first 3 Child's Plays, no one believed anyone who thought Chucky was a killing doll. It's the whole main crux of the story, the seed of Chucky with Glinda, that really to me makes this film kind of fall apart, because I'm sorry, his character's horrid. It's bad. It's incredibly, incredibly bad. First off, the opening of the film, where you're literally watching sperm go through a fallopian tube, and I'm just like, well, this is a really weird way to start this film. But but it's just the Glenn / Glinda character just never worked for me on page or on screen, and everything around him, I think, works incredibly well with Chucky and Tiffany, and even the Jennifer Tilly Redman storyline, I think, works really well for a Chucky film. It's pretty much everything with the kid, which, first off, I don't understand how he grows, because literally in Bride of Chucky, he's a baby out of the womb, and yet somehow he's grown to a normal doll size. I don't understand how that works. But regardless, the humor is still there. I was telling Brian during the film, I go, every time Chucky goes with his mouth open, it's like I laugh, because it's like, it's very weird that you see Chucky shocked by anything, and Chucky is shocked through 90% of this film because he's just blown away by everything going on. And it's funny. It's just literally the Glenn / Glinda character that just doesn't work. And then of course the end is just kind of ridiculous, but it is what it is. But Brian, this was your first time watching Seed of Chucky. So go ahead and give me your thoughts on it. You actually, from what I said, and everyone, like, I enjoyed watching this again because Brian looked like he had a fun time watching Seed of Chucky. Like, he was having some great laughing moments in this movie. And it was one of those where we're not laughing at the film because of how shitty it is. I think Brian actually kind of enjoyed this film.
Yeah, well, first I apologize for the interruption. I had somebody walk in the room, and I realized I cut off my video but not my mic. So anyway,
yeah, probably kept going.
So I was like, sorry about that. Anyway, yeah. So I had not seen this movie. The original Child's Play movies, I've seen one. I think I've seen two and maybe three, but I don't remember them at all. So I mean, if I saw them, it was so long ago when they first came out. Bride of Chucky, I thought I had seen, but clearly not, because the scenes I watched are not familiar at all. So I went into this basically not knowing anything about it. And I have to correct myself from earlier in the show. I said there were more stinkers than good movies. That's not true, because this one actually teetered onto the positive side for me. This movie I don't think is a stinker. I mean, it's not a great film by any means, but I think this movie is what Chucky always should have been. I think this one found, and maybe Bride did too, but I haven't watched it. I think this one found the right tone, because the original Child's Play movies, you're dealing with such an outlandish thing about this possessed doll and this evil doll. And while there is some humor to it, it tries to play the horror pretty straight in those movies. And in this one, I think they realize you got to lean into that comedy. And they lean hard into the comedy.
Bride does it too.
Does it too? Okay.
Yeah, Bride does it too.
And I kind of thought they might have. I
enjoyed Bride of Chucky. It's literally Glinda that doesn't work, which is why Seed doesn't work for me.
Yeah, and on that point, I will agree with you on that. I think that, first of all, I was puzzled by why they called it Seed of Chucky when I hadn't seen it, instead of like Son of Chucky. Now I know why. Because they didn't want to assign a gender to it, apparently. Because there's the whole Glenn or Glenda thing going on, which Glenn or Glenda, first of all, is
I remember the first time I told you that he was a gender-neutral doll, and you had the biggest eye roll out of it, and now you know why.
Now I know why. And that's the thing, is they play this thing off. First, Glenn or Glenda, first of all, is the name of an Ed Wood movie where he plays, the male and the female version, because he's like, cross-dressing and stuff. And so I assume this is a tip of the hat to that, because clearly the filmmakers must have enjoyed that kind of campy movie too, because they have John Waters plays a semi-big supporting role in this movie. So other things like that. But the Glenn or Glenda thing is like, I think personally, aside from some comedic, battling between, oh my God, I blanked out her name, Tiffany and Chucky fighting over whether it's going to be a boy or a girl, it really served no purpose to not just have a Son of Chucky. But his character, first of all, the voice by Billy Boyd is very weird. It sounds like this, like, Oliver, may I have some more, please, sir? Kind of role. And I was like, throughout the whole movie, I could not figure out where I had heard this voice. And I knew it wasn't his voice, but it reminded me of something. And finally, like 3/4 of the way through the movie, I'm like, Arthur Christmas, which is just a weird jump. But James McAvoy's voice that he uses for Arthur in that movie is the exact voice Billy Boyd uses in this movie. Now, I don't know if he was trying to go for a gender neutral thing where he kind of sounds like he could be a girl. I don't know if that's what he was going for. I don't know.
What's funny is when he tries to be Glenda, it works. It's when he's Glenn, it doesn't work. Because when he, in the third act, when he kind of snaps and goes into the Glenda mode, I'm like, okay, I this works for me. It's when he's Glenn that I'm like, no, it doesn't. But yeah,
and maybe part of that's the fact that you're supposed to be these.
It's a gender neutral voice.
And maybe part of it's also this. He's supposed to be this like murderous doll, and he obviously as he's playing this kid, he's like oh no, I'm little innocent, I can't be Chucky's son. But then when he turns Glenda, he's like all out full out killer. But so I will agree with you, the Glenn or Glenda thing, and even that character in general is kind of like is probably the thing that holds the movie back the most or drags it down.
You also love how they explain how they were father and son is because of Made in China.
No, Made in Japan, yeah.
Or Made in Japan.
Like he knows, oh, you have a Made in Japan mark too, and like, does that mean he has a billion sons because they all say Made in Japan on them?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he can speak Japanese, and he's like calling Tiffany like Oki-san or something like that.
Yeah, that was a little odd. But the weird thing is with this movie is that you have these dolls, supposedly these. Well, first of all, we were trying to figure out because Sean explained to me how Tiffany died in the previous one, and she'd been burned up and all this stuff, and like, why does she not look like that anymore? And it turns out they're like the dolls they're using to make the movie of the story. Basically, the souls or whatever get put into those new dolls. So
yeah, somehow Glenn knows how to do that. He does it like first time.
Perfect. Yeah, he just reads off this amulet or something. It was.
Yeah.
So they're definitely plastic dolls, but apparently once their souls get put in there, these things aren't plastic dolls anymore. And I'm not talking about just like being possessed by these souls. They're full on flesh and blood. They got semen, they got organs, they got everything going on inside there, just with a plastic shell apparently instead of skin.
This is the one part where the special effects guy like is taking off her back. And then it's a spine.
He opens it up and there's stuff inside. Yeah. And later on, when they're getting injured and chopped up, you've seen blood spurt and all this kind of stuff. And so it's like, okay, I guess we're just playing around with the rules here. I guess you just write it off to being supernatural. I don't know what it was. But I mean, this, like I said, this movie I think just found the right tone for me. It was completely silly, especially when you get into like Jennifer Tilly and Redman and some of those scenes.
There's the one scene. You literally rewound it because it was just so like ridiculous. Where he was like, "Be my Virgin Mary." Wow.
Grab it and force it out.
Pause. Go back. It was like very anti-Me Too movement.
Yeah, it really did not go over well these days. But I don't know. It like I said, this is just the kind of movie that I think that found its lane. It found what it was really trying to be, what Chucky always should have been, and it worked for me. I'm not going to say it's the best horror movie or best movie I've seen or a quality award-worthy thing, but I enjoyed it for what it was. It worked. Of the Child's Play movies I've seen, which as far as I know are just the remake, the original, and this, and maybe 2 and 3, it's probably my favorite one I've seen.
And I'm pretty sure Curse and Cult go more serious and less.
You know what? No, I saw one of those. I remember one of the ones that hit. I don't know which one.
Well, Curse is in a mansion. Curse is in a mansion and Cult in a hospital.
The hospital one, I think, is the one I've seen.
Then you saw Cult.
But of the ones I've seen, this is actually the one I enjoyed the most. And I think it's just because it kind of found its stride and found what it's supposed to be.
Oh. Yeah, so and it's like it's the whole body thing and being like real. I don't remember that in the first 3. Bride, obviously, because they hook up.
When suddenly they're anatomically correct too, so they can hook up.
I feel like a little Pinocchio going on down here.
And then this movie you got Chucky jerking off so he can collect the jizz in the cup. So they can use a turkey baster to put it in Jennifer Tilly. It's just
that's a whole other thing.
You thought Don't Breathe to the turkey baster first? No. Nope.
But I mean, there's some really bad CGI. There's one part where Glenn's running, and it is just the worst CGI of like this doll running with a guy chasing them. There's also one part where they're all 3 poking around like a van, and you can clearly tell that it's a green screen, and they just put the doll heads over there. Like it just visually doesn't look good. But Tilly, I think Tilly's fine in the film. Tilly knows the role that she's playing, and both roles technically. She's playing Tiffany and herself technically. It's not It's not as bad as some of the horror films we've had to watch or see, whether it be on this show or not. But to me, out of the Child's Play franchise, it's the worst one. Bride's honestly my favorite. I really like Bride of Chucky. Bride of Chucky, I think, is just a lot of fun. And then I really, really like the remake. Granted, it goes completely away from the whole serial killer aspect, but I really like Child's Play, which I have my review for that on the channel here. But yeah,
I will
really
say though, it's funny that being your least favorite and my favorite of the franchise, they're still only a star apart in ratings.
True, very, very true. Like I said, I like the Child's Play franchise. That's why I was like happy when the TV show came, because I was like, are they going to be serious with this, or are they going to, make it? Oh, it's TV, but no, they dropped the F-bombs. It's bloody and stuff. The only thing they haven't done is nudity yet. Oh, not to mention Brian's favorite part of the movie. Oh God, I almost forgot about that.
So Chucky is basically has to go jerk off in his cup so they can collect his semen to make a body for Glenn and Glenda. And basically he turns to Tiffany's like, can I get a little help here? And so she like reaches up and pulls out and shows her little doll boobs.
Brian died during this. And then of course when Jonathan Waters is taking a picture of Chucky jerking off in a window, he's like, what window like that?
And he's like, oh, we got midgets in there. Great.
God bless the little people. This movie was totally Brian Michaels humor, and that's why it works so well for him. The Chucky films, all of them, I'm pretty sure are all on Peacock.
They're all on Peacock, or if you don't get that, basically any of the NBC stuff, like you watch it on USA, you can watch it on Sci-Fi on their website. So,
well, yeah, because that's where the show's on USA.
Yeah, they're all NBC Universal owned. So.
Yeah. So now we're going to go to my pick. This is a movie, and I said this last week. Sometimes, just like Brian previously here with Seed of Chucky, there are movies that a lot of people are going to find very, very stupid, but it hits the right kind of humor for you, kind of like it did for Brian in Seed of Chucky, where the humor works for him, and he ends up liking the movie quite a bit compared to most of the population that hates it. This is one of those films for me. This is a film that a lot of people haven't seen, and for the most part, a lot of people who have seen it don't particularly enjoy it. I mean, there's all situations, and I'm going to keep poking at Brian because I know he's going to attack me for this film. Brian really likes the movie 43, which is a horrid film, but Brian thinks it's one of the funniest films ever. He also likes...
Whoa. Let's put hold
on. Let me get my shit out. He also really likes The Brothers Grimsby, which is not a good film, but he loves it. And I don't get why. And I'm going to get that out of the way because I know Brian's going to viciously attack me.
Like, point that out.
What's that?
You've never watched that film in full.
I don't need to. You showed me one scene and it was enough for both movies. You showed me one scene of each and I was like, I'm not going to like these movies. This is this kind of film for me. And I know I'm going on the defensive already because the last couple of weeks, Brian's viciously attacked all my movies. And I'm going to go, you have. This film is starring one of the best comedic actors ever. And is it one of his more well-known films? No, it's not. But for me, I really, really enjoy this film. And I am talking about the Bill Murray comedy, The Man Who Knew Too Little. The Man Who Knew Too Little came out November 14th, 1997, had a budget of $20 million, had a weekend opening of $4.60 million, was number 5 its opening weekend, and had a finished box office of $13.71 million. Shocking it did not go overseas because they're in London the entire film. But yeah, this is a movie. I love Bill Murray. I do. Obviously, we've talked about him numerous times on the show already. The reason why I love The Man Who Knew Too Little is this is one of those movies where I feel that Bill Murray is having a blast. Just playing this lovable goof who is brought into a situation that he is mistaken for a play. Basically what happens, he's from Iowa, and he goes over to London to see his brother on his birthday. His brother has a very, very big, important business meeting that night. So instead of keeping Bill Murray there and trying to have him interact with those people, he sends him out to do what's called a live action play, where basically all the actors and actresses are on real streets and stuff like that, and they integrate the character or the person into that play, and he has to basically be a part of the play. Obviously, like most films that have situations kind of like this, the phone rings, he thinks it's the play, and it's a real life kind of spy mission and he stumbly keeps working through this real life scenario with conspiracies and bombs and assassins and stuff like that. He thinks it's all part of a play. So Bill Murray's playing along, thinking that it's this play, but it's actually real life shit going down. And Bill Murray, to me, plays it beautifully. He is having so much fun playing this lovable goofball that is shockingly just outsmarting and outmaneuvering all these real life people, and saving the day ultimately by the end of the film. You got Alfred Molina, who basically plays this head assassin guy. Peter Gallagher plays his brother. The rest of the cast is, for the most part, a bunch of people that I personally don't know, or you've seen them in a lot of films, but they're not like huge name actors. But for me, I've always enjoyed this film. I always get a good laugh out of these films because of Bill Murray. There's a particular scene. There's a couple scenes personally for me, like the car chase scene that I have a lot of fun watching. And then there's, of course, the Russian dance sequence at the end, which just watching Bill Murray's face through it, to me, is just a lot of fun, and I enjoy this movie immensely. I get that it is not everyone's cup of tea because Brian's about to rip this movie apart, but I personally really, really like this film, and that is why I chose it. And I think it's a movie that if you just let yourself go and enjoy Bill Murray as Bill Murray, then you can probably enjoy it a little bit as well. For me, I enjoyed it quite a bit. And now Brian's going to rip the film apart. So go ahead.
You keep saying I'm going to rip the film apart.
You did. You watched it and you said, I did not laugh a single time. Which to me,
did not laugh a single time.
This film.
I did not say I hate this film. I said I watched this and I did not laugh a single time. And that much is true. But this is kind of like Starship Troopers last week for me, in that it just didn't do anything for me. But I don't have any active hate towards this film. It's just kind of one that's like, this it just wasn't for me. Now the problem is, in a comedy, not laughing a single time is a pretty big problem, and especially when you have Bill Murray. Because I love Bill Murray. I mean, some of the greatest comedies of all times star Bill Murray. But the problem is, this was actually part of the thing that basically killed Bill Murray.
I agree with that. Garfield killed Bill Murray.
Well, this is the last. Basically, this is the last Bill Murray comedy that essentially he ever made, because I mean, he had done his streak with Ghostbusters and Scrooge and Groundhog Day and What About Bob and all that kind of stuff, and then he hit this phase in like this mid to late 90s where he put out like a lot of like more family oriented stuff, like Larger Than Life and Space Jam and this, and then after that he moved into like the Wes Anderson Lost in Translation, that kind of phase of his career. Now he's popped up here and there, obviously he's popped up in Zombieland, Garfield, he contributed a voice, things like that. But as far as a Bill Murray comedy movie, this was the last one, and it makes me so sad because I love Bill Murray, I love his comedy, and for this to be the one that he goes out on, essentially, because I'm not a big fan of the Wes Anderson stuff, things like that, and anyone who knows me knows that it's just not my style of comedy. So for such one of my favorite comedic actors to have basically stopped making movies after like 1996, essentially, it really disappoints me. Now, Bill Murray, Sean kept trying to tell me how, he looks like he's having so much fun. He looked like he's playing a role like in any other movie to me. I wasn't particularly captivated by it. People were talking about this Russian dance scene, and I watched it. And I'm like, I don't find this all that funny. I don't know. I can't say why this movie just didn't hit for me, but it just, I didn't find any of the jokes funny. It is kind of a one joke movie, but that one joke is, can be used as the plot of a movie, but this one just didn't seem to do anything with it. It didn't really go anywhere for me. The supporting cast was all kind of fine. I don't understand why they said it in London, first of all. I think that alone kind of makes it feel.
I think it was more because it's believable for him to not realize it's real because it's in London, because he doesn't understand, because he's a fish out of water in this film. So everything going on there is like, granted, I mean, it's not like it's not familiar, because I mean, you could do this shit in the US, but I think it's because it's in London and he's not from there that he is more.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That he is more open to it just being part of the play, because he doesn't understand.
I think being from Iowa, you could do that same thing if he was in like New York City.
Because in New York City, he's from the US. Like, he's gonna understand that stuff that's going on there. It's like, oh, well, this is the U.S. like that. This is serious. Whereas in London, it's like, oh, well, they drive on the wrong side of the road and they say different words that I don't understand, and they do this and this and this. So maybe it's all part of the play, and I just don't get it. I think him
part of
being
it also,
there
though,
is
is
what confuses him into thinking that it's part of the play still and not real life.
Well, part of it for me, I think, is also you have Bill Murray starring in this movie, but then you have the supporting cast who largely you don't care about. Peter Gallagher is fine, and as an actor, but he's not going to be a big comedy draw here. You have Joanne Whalley, who I don't know if she was still Joanne Whalley Kilmer at the time, as like the main female lead. 99% of people out there don't know who she is, and she wasn't particularly captivating. So it's like, don't know why they couldn't cast somebody else in that role. I think
she was bad in it.
She wasn't bad in it, but I think that basically this is a movie where you basically have Bill Murray and then a bunch of people, and it's like, I think that if you're going to have just a movie that's centered, just basically everything is lying on the one actor basically to carry the entire movie, I just think this wasn't strong enough to support that. The story and writing and stuff wasn't strong.
But I don't understand, and I'm not saying that you like these movies, but this is no different than doing something like Mr. Bean.
Or honestly, I thought he was trying to be Mr. Bean in this movie, I swear.
And I can't
not quite as ignorant and goofy as Mr. Bean, but it felt like basically a Mr. Bean knockoff.
And I cannot stand Mr. Bean or Johnny English. I am not a Rowan Atkinson fan.
I haven't seen Johnny English, yeah.
I've never been a fan of those films. I've never found them funny because of Rowan Atkinson. I just don't find the dude funny. But you put Bill Murray in those same kind of things, it works for me because I love Bill Murray. And that's why I think it works. It's a Mr. Bean-esque kind of story, but you've put a comedic actor in there that I actually thoroughly enjoy. And let's face it, I can't say this for sure, but in Mr. Bean, are there any big name actors in there, or is it all just Rowan Atkinson and everybody else?
I don't remember. I never saw Johnny English movies or any of those things. I think I saw Bean, the first movie, but even then, I don't think there were any stars in it. But Mr. Bean, I really enjoyed when I saw them, like I don't know if there's a TV show or whatever, where they're basically shorts. Those I think are hilarious, or at least I did at the time. This is one of those things I'm afraid to rewatch now because I probably think they were stupid as hell. But I like the shorts. I think when you put him in a full-length movie, I think even in that case, the joke stretched very thin. And so I think putting Bill Murray in basically the same kind of role, I think it's the same thing. It's like, okay, it's just stretched a little thin.
And I mean, granted, rewatching it now, does it hit as hard as it did back in 97 or even 2000 when I would watch this, multiple times and enjoy it? No, but I think it's still a solid Bill Murray comedy. It's not going to be up there with Ghostbusters, Stripes, or any Caddyshack. Even though I'm not a big Caddyshack fan, but his performance in Caddyshack is great. No, but it's one of those that I kind of feel like, you know what? There's a really good comedy here that no one knows about that I think is really, really good. And not enough people have talked about this film, or not enough people have seen this film. Like, same thing with total sidestep here. There's a film that is it's got Michael Caine and Jude Law. Movie's called Sleuth.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic film in my eyes. It's basically a play, but it's real life. I mean, it's live action, but it's in a play-esque kind of format. And I think I can't remember who directed it. It's actually a decent director,
Kenneth Branagh.
But, yeah, and it's
actually a remake of a 70s movie that had Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine in it. And then in the remake, Michael Caine plays the older role, and they brought in Jude Law.
It's a fantastic film. No one's seen it outside of Brian. No one has talked about this film. And it was like, I watched it, I was like, I am blown away by how great this film is. I'm not saying The Man Who Knew Too Little is that, but it's one of those, it's like, it's this niche little, kind of like you with Sex Drive. It's this niche little comedy that you found that you really enjoy, that you want people to see, and you want people to notice it more. It's not going to hit everybody's, funny bone, like this one for you compared to me. But it's one of those that it's like, you know what? Everyone knows Bill Murray. He's a larger than life in terms of acting. But this is one of those I think a lot of people just don't know about. And to me, it's one of my favorite Bill Murray ones because it looks like he's just having a blast.
Yeah, but you put it best. You put it just didn't hit for me. And that's, like I said, this is not a movie where I'm like, this is just an awful movie. I hate this movie. Here's everything that's wrong with the movie. I don't feel any of that at all. It's just, especially with the comedy genre, if you watch something, it's like, this just doesn't hit my funny bone. It's like, this one's just not for me.
Yeah. All right. It's not on anything, I believe.
I don't believe so. Yeah, well, actually, we
have it.
found it on YouTube. It's not like officially on
Oh
YouTube, but
yeah, it
somebody
is. Yeah,
uploaded
you
it to
watch it
YouTube.
on YouTube. I had the DVD, so I
Yeah.
watched it on DVD. Going to our feature film, we were talking about this last week, that this was both our favorite film from this director, and then as soon as I said that, I was like, wait, I remember another movie that I like more. but it's definitely top two for me. We are talking about a film that's no longer available on any streaming or digital or anything. Like, you cannot
It's
find
never
this.
been put on digital.
Yeah, but you can't. It's not on any streaming or anything. You cannot get this movie anywhere unless you buy the Blu-ray or DVD, which is now like ridiculously expensive now because of it, right?
Yeah, and now, and you hear Kevin Smith talk about it. Well, talk about the movie first, and we'll.
Okay, well, we're talking about Kevin Smith's Dogma. Dogma came out November 12th, 1999, had a budget of $10 million, had a weekend opening of $8.66 million. It was number 3 its opening weekend, and had a finished box office of $31.42 million, $30.65 million domestic, and $776,440 international. But yeah, like they made a big point of saying, like, what was it, like last year, 2 years ago, that you weren't going to be able to get Dogma anywhere on any streaming service or anything like that. So like DVDs and Blu-rays of this, like on Amazon, like whoosh, went up like a mass. Like, you go and look it up right now. It's like, I'll look it up right now. But go ahead with what you were saying before you.
What I was saying, because it's the thing where it's actually never been like put on digital, so that's why you can't find it streaming works. The streaming networks don't even have it to show. And as far as the discs, like you said, they've gone skyrocket in value, which is funny because like a couple weeks ago there was a $1 store at my used DVD store, and I saw a Dogma copy there. I'm like, I grabbed that. I'm gonna throw that thing on eBay and make a huge profit on it.
Here, I have it pulled up. Dogma right now for the DVD is $41. The Blu-ray is $196.
Yeah, I'm making $40 profit on that sucker. So, but yeah, and it's not, people like I think have tried to attribute it to being controversial and all this kind of stuff, and it's really not. It's just the studios, especially like Sony, which is Columbia TriStar, put this out. They are kind of phasing themselves out of the physical media game, so they aren't really putting out a lot of movies on disc and stuff anymore. And this is just one that had not yet made the transition to digital, so it's just kind of gotten forgotten about by the studio. And Kevin Smith himself says, people hound him about, why can't I get this on disc? He's like, talk to them, not me. It's nothing controversial. It's just a matter of they haven't gotten around to doing it.
Even the beginning of the film, they have like 4 or 5 like white text on black screen going,
the disclaimers, yeah, which obviously has some fun with, but yeah,
we're just, I mean, eventually, go too far, but they're just like, look, like, we're just making a funny story. Like, we're not here to offend anybody. Like, just calm down. And then they keep going until it's basically a joke.
Well, that's my thing about this movie is I will say that I think Kevin Smith found the right inroad to telling the story, because he got so much criticism. I remember at the time people were like, protesting outside the theaters because it was so, anti-God and anti, religion stuff. And he actually just went among the crowd and protested with them. I remember seeing a video of that, and he was like with them to kind of get in the crowd, and they had no idea who he was, of course, because these people protested and hadn't actually seen the movie. But the way Kevin Smith approaches it is like, this movie is not in any way criticizing religion. It's not criticizing Christianity. It's not criticizing God or belief in spirituality. It's in the title. He's criticizing the dogma and the church and the rules that the church and people on earth apply to religion. You have to follow this. You have to do this, and those are the kind of things that he makes fun of.
Well, yeah, there's literally a whole scene in the film with Chris Rock's Rufus talking to Bethany about, it's not religion that's the problem, it's the structure that you guys have made about it that has failed.
And the things that people do in the name of God, these atrocities and things like this. And so that's the kind of thing that it's poking fun at. And in the meantime, it's telling a story which is essentially a fantasy story. I mean, I'm not saying religion is fantasy. I'm saying the story they're telling of the angels and demons and things like that is telling a story in a fantasy kind of way. But this, I think, was one of Kevin Smith's first more mature movies, because I mean, it's still in the View Askew universe, the Jay and Silent Bob and all that kind of thing. But he had made Clerks and he had done Mallrats, these things. Chasing Amy, I am not a fan of. Chasing Amy feels to me like somebody trying too hard to, I'm going to make a serious film now. But Kevin Smith's dialogue and his style of writing that did not work there for me. I'm baffled by why people love that, because it sounds
I've never seen Chasing Amy, so I can't really.
it sounds like somebody trying too hard to be serious, but they still got all those weird dick and fart jokes and things shoved in there, so it doesn't quite work, and the dialogue doesn't work. But this is the one where he kind of is able to tell a real story beyond just like, hey, here's some slackers hanging out. But he's telling a story. He has something to say, but he's doing it in it's still absolutely a comedy.
Yeah, it's satirical, but it's actually very, very smart.
It is very smart in a lot of the movie, and you can tell in the fact that they were able to bring on all these really good actors. I mean, you got Alan Rickman in this movie, which immediately you got to take the movie seriously, because Alan Rickman, not only just having him in the movie makes it better, but he is just, like always, just put on a great performance. And anytime he's talking, he like commands your attention in every scene.
I mean, literally, when his first scene is him pulling his pants down and talking about how he's a Ken doll, and it's like, oh, I miss Alan Rickman so much. He's so good in this. And then you got Matt and Ben Affleck, who I think are great.
This is some of their best roles as well.
Oh, it is. I mean, like Ben Affleck, for the most part, in the first half of the film, he's just kind of reacting to Matt Damon, and Matt Damon's kind of the main focal point. Like, literally, when Matt Damon starts singing Martin, I was like, Martin. And Ben Affleck's just like not about it. But then you get like the boardroom scene with Ben Affleck.
Yep.
And then you get when he finally snaps in the third act. Ben Affleck kills it in this film. Ben Affleck's great, and Matt Damon.
I think his dramatic acting in this, when he tries to get all serious, I think it still comes across a little strained, but you could tell that he was becoming a better actor.
Yeah, and then Matt Damon's still just like, I'm gonna have fun.
Yeah,
I'm having fun with this. Let's have fun with this. Chris Rock's doing Chris Rock. I mean, Chris Rock's never really. His facial expressions still don't work in movies. There's certain times where he has a facial where I'm like, Chris, come on, Chris, you can do better.
He overacts sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
He's doing the Chucky shock face.
Yeah, like there's one part like in the third act where he's holding Jay and Silent Bob back, and they keep trying to. And he goes. I was like, dude, don't. That face,
not a good actor.
That face does not work in this. Salma Hayek, once again, Salma Hayek again.
Great. Yeah, in the span of 20 hours, I unintentionally watched 3 Salma Hayek movies.
And then for me, it was in the past week because I mean, obviously with Eternals. Yeah. But yeah, Salma Hayek's doing great Salma Hayek things. I mean, Salma Hayek, she's always great for the most part in everything we see her in. Jay and Silent Bob to me are the kind of and Jason Lee are kind of the weakest parts of the film. I mean, well, I'm not gonna.
I think part of that is putting them alongside. This is the first movie I think first Kevin Smith movie where he basically tried to put his actors, his Jason Mewes and Jason Lee up next to Alan Rickman and Salma Hayek and even George Carlin and some of these people.
And you can see the distinction.
There's a definite difference, and it comes across. And Jason Lee, I've said before, Jason Lee is one of those people who he knows how to read Kevin Smith dialogue. Like, he can make it work and not sound so fake. But in this movie, you put him alongside real actors, and it sounds like okay, he's not quite there with the rest of these people. Yeah,
it really sounds off. I'm not, and I said Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith's fine in the role because he's playing Silent Bob. Yeah. Silent Bob's just
even Jason Mewes is fine. It's just when they're surrounded by real actors, difference there. Yeah,
the best scene for Jay in this film is right after oh God, what is Ben Affleck's name? Balthazar? No, it's not Balthazar. Bartleby. After Bartleby, and he was like, what is going on? Who is this lady? Why is that guy like? That's to me the funniest Jay scene of the movie, where he's just going off like, I need answers now, kind of thing. And I mean, Kevin Smith cries in the film. I think he does a decent job in that scene, but there's a distinction there between, like you said, between the top tier actors and Jay and Silent Bob, because it's one of those things where it's like you're watching this movie and you're having these philosophical conversations like Chris Rock has with Bethany, and then Jay comes in with a dick joke or a blunt joke or something like that. It's just like, okay, like it's Jay. Jay's gonna make that joke, but it's just like, oh, you just kind of killed that
Which
that
they're
moment.
funny jokes. It's just
Yeah,
the tone of the movie.
the tone.
Again, this seems our theme tonight, so the tone just kind of
Oh,
jumps.
it's all over the place.
But honestly, overall, the film totally works for me. It's still one of my favorite Kevin Smith
Oh yeah,
movies.
I have a blast watching this, and I am not a religious guy, and I will avidly walk away from someone who has a religious conversation. But this is one of those. It's a religious film, and I'm like, yeah, I'll watch Dogma. Dogma's a fun film. I mean, you really have a literal shit monster in this movie. I will say one of the worst performances I've seen in a very, very long time is the bartender. I can't remember the actor's name, but he's got like 3 lines in the movie. It's when Azrael and all them are in there in the bar. Oh my god, the lines are delivered so horribly bad.
I don't remember who the bartender was. Okay.
He's got a lip thing, but it's poorly delivered, and then obviously he gets killed like within like 2 minutes because of the holy bartender thing. But and then of course the 3 hockey guys are, I mean, they're just there. And they're just like, there's weird parts.
They're clearly Kevin Smith actors as well.
Yeah, there's just weird parts where it's like they rip literally like a part of the world and jump through a curtain at one point that made no fucking sense in this film. But mind you, it's a fun film if you can take a joke and not be all up your own asses about religion. This is a fun movie. It is not my favorite one. Clerks 2 is actually my favorite one. Clerks 2 literally has me in tears every time I watch it because I'm laughing so hard. But I enjoyed that. When I think of the Kevin Smith slate, Clerks 2 and Dogma are usually the first 2 that pop in my brain as the ones I enjoy the most. And a lot of it is because of these performances, like Alan Rickman, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Salma Hayek. We haven't said her name, Linda Fiorentino, who I think she does a great job as Bethany. And even her motivations and her struggles through the film, I think she does a great job with it. I think she does a good job of balancing being a good actress and being able to read Kevin Smith's lines in the film.
Mm-hmm.
I think she does a very, very solid job. And it's a shame she doesn't act anymore. I think the last thing she did was in 2009. And the only thing I ever really know her from is from Men in Black. Shockingly, that's the one thing I only really recognize her from.
I had seen her with some other stuff, like right around this time. She had done like some stuff. It was like Jade and I know her from Vision Quest and all these movies. But yeah, she hasn't done much in a while.
No, like literally the last thing I just pulled up Brian DB. The last thing she did was 2009. But I think she does a great job as Bethany in the film, and you like her character. Like you will follow the journey that she goes on with Jay and Silent Bob and Rufus. And yes, Chris Rock's not a great actor, but he is enjoyable in the film doing his Chris Rock antics because he does balance out Jay and Silent Bob a little bit by being kind of like, he's comedic, but he's there to call them out on their BS as well, while still having funny lines. It's just visually, he's not a good actor with his facial expressions. He's just kind of like, he's doing his stand up, which funny in a movie, not so much. Like you can really poke out his flaws in the film. But it's still a lot of fun, and that's why we like Dogma. When we both saw this on there, we're definitely talking about Dogma, right? We're like, yeah, we're definitely talking about Dogma. But problem is if you don't have the DVD or Blu-ray, it's gonna be very, very hard for you to find this film if you've never seen this.
Check eBay soon. I'll have my copy of it.
Right on sale for $120. Yeah. $20 less than Amazon.
I'm as glad I still have my Blu-ray. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of I have like that special edition one. It's like a 2-disc and everything. Like that's the one I've got. So there's like tons and tons of content on it, which I have.
Actually, I have double the money because I think I have that on DVD too. So I actually have 2 different DVDs plus the Blu-ray.
Exactly. So you can make a profit out of it. So we would
say get it profit from the movie. Yeah.
So we would say check it out, but it's very, very hard for you guys to check it out. If you have seen Dogma, you guys know exactly what we're talking about. And if you have the DVD and Blu-ray, then yeah, go back and revisit it because you probably haven't revisited it in a while. But yeah, if you don't have it, it kind of sucks to be you. But anyway, anything else you want to add for Dogma?
No, I think we covered everything.
All right. Well, that is tonight's episode. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Movie Crusaders. If you did, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Out currently, you got my review for the Eternals. Brian, real quick thoughts because you watched it, but you were
not a fan. It was again. This is one of those movies that I didn't hate it watching it, but I don't know if I'll ever watch it again.
This is one of those movies that Brian and I were almost verbatim spoke the exact same.
I did not watch his review, and I wrote mine, and he said it's like basically copying this.
Yeah, so if you've seen my review, that is almost verbatim what Brian thought of the Eternals. Which for me, the overall scoring thing of is at the very, very end when it says the Eternals will return. Do they have to? That's basically the thought process of that film. My review for The Harder They Fall, which is another film that Brian saw. I said this was probably my #1 movie of the year, if not, and definitely in the top 2. Brian, your quick thoughts on The Harder They Fall?
Yeah, I was really impressed with The Harder They Fall. This is a movie I was actually thinking of skipping. I mean, I was like, I liked some of the people in it, but it wasn't jumping out at me. You watched it and loved it. I'm like, I guess I'm going to check it out after all. And I really enjoyed. I didn't love it as much as you, but I very much enjoyed it.
And then I did not see this, and I'm probably not going to because of your thoughts. Love Hard.
Love Hard. It's if you've ever seen one of the 12 billion Hallmark or Lifetime Christmas movies that they put out every year, you've seen this movie. It's doesn't really distinguish itself from any of those at all. I like Jimmy O Yang, and it's not a bad movie. It's just completely generic.
Gotcha. So I probably won't check that one out. So there's your little quick review of that for anyone who watches the episode. Coming out this week, we've got Red Notice, which I'm excited for. Brian is not excited for because he keeps losing faith in this film every time he sees a trailer for it. There will definitely be a review for Red Notice as soon as it is watched. Could be out right now, honestly. Who knows? Kind of depends on when this drops and when Red Notice gets released on Netflix, because I am not seeing it in theaters because it's already out right now in theaters. It's not around me, so I'm having to wait for it to pop on Netflix. Belfast is also out. I think we said last week, you and I probably aren't going to check this thing out till it gets closer to Oscars.
It's one I'm sure I will end up checking out because I guarantee it's going to get Oscar nominations. But as of now, I'm not rushing to the theater.
Exactly. And of course, Clifford the Big Red Dog, which neither one of us give a flying F about. I liked the books as a kid. I ain't watching this movie. But next week, we've got one of our most anticipated films of the year in Ghostbusters Afterlife, which very, very first trailer when that came out, it immediately made me go, ooh, this is not the Ghostbusters film I want. Second trailer made me feel a little bit better about it, so we will see how Ghostbusters Afterlife does. Maybe we'll have Brian on to do a spoiler review if it's worthy of a spoiler review, but there will definitely be a review from me on that. Also, King Richard will be on HBO Max and in theaters. Will Smith is getting some Oscar buzz going with the true story of the Williams sisters and their dad. So that's out. And then also it's Amazon Prime, right, for Tick Tick Boom? Or is it Netflix?
Tick Tick Boom is Netflix.
Tick Tick Boom is Netflix. So, and I'm sure Brian's definitely going to be watching this movie.
Yeah, it was a musical written by Jonathan Larson, who did Rent. It's kind of about himself, biographical, but it is directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, and so it's got all the pieces there that I think I like. And Andrew Garfield's in it. So.
Yeah, so I didn't know could sing. So I may see it. Brian definitely will see it. So if all else fails, next week's episode, or at least the week after's episode, we'll ask what Brian's thoughts were, and we'll get it from there. But we will definitely be back next week for the next episode of Movie Crusaders, where we're going to be talking about one of my favorite animated films as a child. We've got a conspiracy theory film that is one of my favorite films of the 90s. I love this film immensely. Cannot wait to talk about that. We have a gothic horror film, fantasy film, whatever you want to have, that I don't remember liking. So we're going to revisit that and see if maybe, over time this has changed and has become better, or if it still feels like a crappy film in my eyes. We also have a adventure film from the 2000s that I think is well liked by mostly everyone that has seen it. I have honestly not seen it, I think, really since then. So it's definitely going to be a definite revisit for me. And then we have a stinker film that was literally one of the very first reviews on this channel, where I basically shitted on this film for 24 minutes. That is how much
I'm waiting the whole year for this.
We have literally been waiting to talk about this film since I think March. We're like, we are hot. I go, I don't care what other shitty film came out. We are talking about this movie. And you're like, okay. So
Okay.
we're definitely going to be talking about that film. So figure out what those movies are. And until next time, I am Sean Wasserkrug. That is Brian Michaels. We are the Weekend Crusaders. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.